Hey folks, in this video I'm going to be covering part of a report from biznews.com. BizNews is one of South Africa's largest independent media organizations, and in this report they are discussing the damage done to South Africa's economy by a policy known as Black Economic Empowerment. For any outsiders to South Africa who are unfamiliar with what that is, Black Economic Empowerment, or BEE for short, is a system of racially based quotas in South Africa which stipulates who and who can't be hired by businesses. The penalties of not complying with these policies can include major fines. So let's take a look.
It's Wednesday, the 5th of March. I'm Alec Hogg. Welcome to the Biz News Briefing. Top story tonight picks up on the World Bank report that was issued earlier this week, saying that South Africa needs to urgently reassess its BEE laws. Gabriel Kraus at the Institute for Race Relations, the top think tank in South Africa, it's been doing this kind of work for almost 100 years now, says that it's a 150 billion rand a year cost to the economy. Some would say a scam, given that the beneficiaries are not broad-based, but a tiny elite, and not all black, by the way. And his view is that if this money were to be channeled back into the economy, if the cost were to be taken away from society, and indeed this is directly in our taxes, VAT, instead of having to be increased to 17%, could be cut to 11.5%. Let's pick up on some of the highlights of this morning's interview, which is in full on BizNews TV.
So, Acting Chief Procurement Officer of Treasury, who presides over about 1.2 trillion rand of spending, Vili Matebula, has explained repeatedly that a BEE premium is the legal amount that the government can spend extra in order to procure from a racially preferred buyer. So, to give an example from the City of Cape Town's Value for Money report, two suppliers were willing to sell traffic light controllers for about 70,000 rand. There's the original manufacturer, and then there's another supplier selling exactly the same part, exactly the same deal. But the original manufacturer didn't have as many BEE points, so they didn't get the contract, the tender. The supplier that did get the tender sold exactly the same thing for 7,000 rand extra, for 7% extra. I think it was about 6,000 rand extra. So that is a BEE premium of about 7%. Mr. Matebula has explained that BEE premiums are capped at 25% for contracts under 50 million rand, and they're capped at 11.1% for contracts over 50 million rand. So if you've got a 100 million rand contract, legally, you can spend an extra 11.1 million rand for exactly the same building, exactly the same length of road, exactly the same part for a power station. You can spend that extra 11.1 million rand legally in order to go to the company with the higher B points. And that's actually legally required unless Treasury gives an exemption.
How much of South Africa's state spending is actually subjected to this 25% rule up to 50 million or 11% over that?
So the short answer is just about all of the public procurement spend, which is roughly 1.2 trillion rand per annum at this stage. And that is about 15, 17% of GDP. So it's about a sixth, between a seventh and a sixth of the economy. So you can think of it as one day of the week. I would very much like all South Africans to be respected in the basic way required by the Constitution, which is, we pay taxes, and Treasury has a duty to tell us how those taxes are being spent. So the first thing is there should be transparency about this, and the people not calling for transparency are also in opposition. Then the second thing is to call for a reduction of BEE premiums down to 0 rand. And our polling indicates, polling by the Institute of Race Relations, who asked this very specific question, last year. And we found 70% of all respondents, similar numbers across races, 65% of black respondents, said they would like BEE premiums to come down to R0. Our report estimates that the BEE per annum savings that we could garner is 150 billion rand. And conservatively, 100 billion of that could go to cutting VAT to 11.5% from 15%, which would directly inject money into the economy, stimulate demand. It wouldn't add to the debt because it would be paid for by cutting the premiums. It would be very welcome relief or poverty relief for the bottom income group who would not suffer so much VAT. The exemptions don't really work. And it would stimulate, business activity because there'd be an extra 100 billion rand instead of the government spending it in a way that adds nothing to the economy.
If you just take it one step further, and we didn't discuss this today because the focus here was on the amount that is being, as you said, the BEE premium that is being added to the economy. You can imagine it's like a millstone around the economy's neck. But there's a lot of complaints about the lack of investment into South Africa. Well, are you surprised? If you would like to invest in a new business or a new company, you must have BEE partnerships. These are people from all over the world who we desperately need to come into our country to create jobs. But they've got to give away between 25 and 30% of that business. So effectively, if you're going to put in 100 million rand, well, just know that you're going to write off up to 30 million rand of that immediately. And your net investment is only going to be 70 million rand. Now, nobody in their right mind is going to do that.
As you can see from this report, not only does black economic empowerment harm the economy, which is the exact opposite of what it is supposed to do, given that the justification for it was to redress the economic injustices caused by apartheid, but it only benefits a small minority of politically connected people and business elites. I'm also going to now share some of my personal experience as a journalist. When I was in my 20s, working for a local community paper in my area called the Hillcrest Fever, I covered a story in what is known as a township called Riverview. A township is the South African word for an impoverished community of basically all black people. And what had happened in Riverview was that a tornado had blown through the valley and basically taken out all the shacks of the people who lived there. So the government was called in to build them housing. And you might think, well, what's wrong with that? That's what the government is supposed to do. Well, when I covered the story, I found out that the contractor who had been given the job was a company that, and I kid you not, I'm being completely serious here, they did not have the skills to build homes. Now you might wonder how that's even possible. Well, in South Africa, whenever the state needs to have any kind of work done, they put out what's called a tender. And instead of going to the most competent or skilled professionals, tenders in South Africa often go to someone who has a family member in politics or is otherwise connected to the power structures of this country. So this company, whose staff did not know how to properly build houses, was brought in and very quickly realized that they were not up to the task. What do you think happened then? Well, the logical person would think, get rid of the people that don't know what they're doing and replace them with a company who does. But that's not what happened. Instead of having this company replaced with one that could actually get the job done. The local ward councillor overseeing the project went to the provincial government and got even more money to train these people in the art of house building. What happened to the residents waiting for places to live, you ask? Well, they just had to wait even longer. And as ridiculous as this sounds, it is commonplace in South Africa for this to happen. When black companies are given these tenders in these corrupt ways, they often just pocket the money and don't do any work at all. Or if they do work, it is of poor quality and substandard results. As always, I hope that this video has been of some use to you. Look after yourselves, take care of each other, and for now, farewell.